Hi guys, welcome back to Catch and Cook. Today we're going to be making salmon steak with a honey, soy, and ginger glaze. I'm also making coconut rice, green beans, and homemade bread to serve alongside the salmon this evening. Of course, before I get started, I have to make a trip outside to the garden. We're going to go ahead and pick some fresh herbs to go in our Italian bread, and we'll also be using it to season the green beans later on this evening. Okay, I'm outside right now in the garden, and I'm standing here with my little basket and scissors. We've got the basil and oregano behind me, and rosemary's off to the other side. I think I'm going to go ahead and cut a little bit of each for tonight's bread, and we'll also need the seasoning for green beans, of course. So I'm going to go ahead and get to it. Hi, I'm still out here in the garden. Went ahead and picked a big basket of herbs, and now I'm over by the flower garden. We're going to go ahead and pick a few posies for the centerpiece. Not sure which color I'm going to go with this evening. Maybe a little orange, a pink, we'll see. Here's a look at the herbs that I gathered from the garden earlier. We've got some thyme. I have a couple different thyme plants growing out there. There's lemon thyme and then an Italian thyme. So that's what that looks like. We've also got some fresh oregano. There's that. And some rosemary and basil. And I've got some mint. Now I'm going to be using the mint for our iced tea for later this evening. We'll serve that and possibly some wine with the salmon. We'll see. Now I'm going to go ahead and wash the herbs and chop them up and get ready to make our Italian bread. Alright, the herbs are all chopped up, and now I've pulled out the bread maker. The bread maker that I'm using is really old. It's actually more than 15 years old. And it was used when I got it, but it still works like a champ. So I don't know what I'd do without it. It really cuts down on a lot of the time that it takes to knead and process the bread. So I'm going to go ahead and pull out all of my ingredients and get started. Okay, I have all the ingredients ready to make the bread. What we're going to put into the container is the wet ingredients first, which is 7.5 ounces of water that's been heated to 80 degrees Fahrenheit and 3 tablespoons of softened butter or margarine. On top of that, we're going to add 3 cups of bread flour, 2 tablespoons of dry milk, 3.5 tablespoons of sugar, 1 teaspoon of salt. Then we're going to push it aside inside the pan and make a well for the yeast. You'll need either 2 teaspoons of active dry yeast or 1.5 teaspoons of the bread machine fast rise yeast. I'm using the bread machine yeast today. And then you'll go ahead and put that in your bread maker and set it on the dough setting. I'm making the dough instead of actually doing the whole bread inside the machine because I want the bread to be nice and hot and fresh when Michael comes home from work. So I'm going to set the dough aside, and then once I finish rolling the dough out, I'll go ahead and add the garlic salt, some grated Parmesan cheese, and some of the fresh herbs from the garden, and olive oil. Brush that all onto the bread and put it in the oven maybe about a half hour to an hour before he's due to arrive home. That way everything will be nice and hot and fresh. Alright, I went ahead and set the machine on dough and pressed the start button. We should have Italian herb dough ready in about an hour and 40 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and use that time to clean up the kitchen and get the house ready for Michael's arrival. Alright, the bread dough is out. Now it's on a floured surface, and it's going to sit like that for about 15 minutes. After that, I'm going to go ahead and put it on a pizza stone, roll it out into the shape that I want, and add the other ingredients, the herbs and garlic that we talked about earlier, and the olive oil, and then set it aside so that it'll be ready for later this evening. That's what it looks like on the inside. Alright, we're going to go ahead and mix up our honey, soy, and ginger glaze in advance so that it's ready when it's time to cook. I'm using this natural Australian honey. They didn't have any of the Georgia honey at the grocery store, so we're going to the land down under today. The recipe calls for 2 tablespoons, so we're going to go ahead and do that. And you see I've got out my little ducky tablespoon. I've had those forever. I know I could use a more professional one, but I kind of like the duck, so that's what we're going with. Okay, I've already put the 2 tablespoons of honey in my mixing bowl, and now I need to add 2 tablespoons of soy sauce. We can either go with the full flavored soy sauce that's full of sodium, or go with the low sodium option. I think this evening I'm going to go ahead and go with the low sodium option. Alright, I went ahead and whisked together the honey and the soy sauce. I've also added 2 tablespoons of ginger and a tablespoon of water. I'm getting ready to put in 2 teaspoons of Dijon mustard. As you can see, I also switched out ducks. This poor little guy lost his head, but that's okay. We're going to go ahead and keep him anyway. We'll whisk that all together, and then our glaze will be ready for later on this evening. Alright, we're all done making the honey soy ginger glaze. This is what it looks like. As you can see, it's not too terribly thick. We're going to refrigerate it until later this evening, and what's going to happen is I'm going to cook the salmon in the pan, and after the salmon cooks, I'll go ahead and add this honey soy ginger glaze to the pan, heat it up, and then drizzle it over top of the fish once I have everything on the plate. Alright, here's a quick look at what you'll need to make the coconut rice. Some people like to add extra sugar and cream in their coconut rice, so you'll find a lot of different recipes for it. Personally, Michael and I like to control the amount of fat and sugar in our diet, so we're going to go ahead and use coconut milk with a little bit of half and half, just to add just a smidge of sweetness. I'm going to go ahead later and put the rice along with some water, the milk, and half mixture into a pan with a pinch of salt, bring it to a boil, and then turn down the heat and cover it with a lid and let it simmer until the rice has absorbed all of the liquid. Once it's done that, I'm going to go ahead and fluff it with a fork and put it onto the plate to go along with the salmon and our green beans. Okay, it's just about time to cut up the salmon. Michael should be home soon, so I want to go ahead and slice it into steaks, season it up, and that way when he walks in the door, I can go ahead and throw it in a saucepan and have dinner ready for him in maybe about 10-15 minutes. See, it's a decent size piece. I'm going to season it with salt and pepper. That's what the back side looks like. And then go ahead and set that aside.